Today we've got the updated 2026 governor's prediction for the month of October. It's been 3 months, so let's take a stroll through these states. There hasn't been many changes, but I did make a few tweaks. As I made the map, I did look at every state, but it's clear that there's just so much time left. A lot of these primary fields are still crowded. It's way too early to say what's really going to happen. The assumption is the Dems will have at least a little bit of an advantage, but we'll see what happens. So let's get into this. We're going to start with the safe states. These are expected to be over 10% margins or are otherwise not competitive. We'll start with the Dems. First, I've got Hawaii. Then it's California. It's very crowded there on both sides in that top two primary. Whatever happens though, Dems should be substantially favored though until something changes. Next, it's the open seat in Colorado. Most likely it's going to be Michael Bennet, and I've got that one at low double digits. We'll keep going east. We'll stop off in Illinois. Pritzker here running for a third term. He's not a slam dunk, but unless Republicans get something serious going on, Pritzker should win relatively comfortably, especially if it's a rematch between him and Darren Bailey. Now we'll go to the East Coast. We've got a couple of states here. It's Massachusetts and Maryland. Not much to say there. Maura Healey, Wes Moore should have pretty easy paths to re-election. If former governors Charlie Baker or Larry Hogan got into the race, maybe it changes things, but I still don't think it would be dramatic. Now we'll do the safe states for the Republicans. Starting in the West Coast, it's Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama, and in the northeast corner, it's Vermont. This one is largely dependent on Phil Scott. If he actually runs for yet another term, I think he would coast to another landslide. But if Scott decides to retire, then this is not going to be safe red, and it could easily favor the Dems depending on what happens. So those are the safe states I've got for both sides. You might have noticed a couple of changes since the last video, but several of these could go either way depending on who the nominees are. And several of these are kind of borderline, so you could have a slightly different rating. But I'm not going to go through all the states. They're fairly heavily favored for one party or the other, but like with almost every election, one or two of those states could come onto the map as we get closer to the actual election. Now let's go down to the likely states. These are expected to be between 5 and 10 point margins or are semi-competitive. We'll start with the Dems. This time let's start on the East Coast. First, it's Maine. Here's an open seat, but Republicans kind of outnumbered here in this state by the Dems. Dems have kind of a crowded field here, so we're not sure what's going to happen, but the rating right now is going to stay at likely. The two other states that I had at safe in my previous video, it's Connecticut and Rhode Island. Those were always borderline. You could still put them at safe right now if you'd like. But Connecticut has had 3 consecutive, very close governor's races prior to the last election. If Ned Lamont actually runs for a third term, he's popular enough he could easily win by over 10. But it's not as overwhelming as some other states, so that's why this one comes in at likely. Now next door in Rhode Island, Dan McKee, very, very unpopular, and he is running again. Republicans don't have a lot of success in this state, so even if it's McKee, he's going to be favored to win again. But there's enough there to not say this is safe. That's why this is at likely. Now if we continue west, let's do New York. This one is high single digits. It's likely out of just a little bit of caution. Kathy Hochul does have to get through a primary. As of late, it looks like she's likely to do so. In the general election, she might be facing Elise Stefanik, but it could be somebody else. Lots of time left. Either way, Hochul is positioning herself as the opposition to Trump, even though the state moved toward the right in the last presidential election. Dems are clearly in the driver's seat here. In the last election, Lee Zeldin made it close, but not close enough. So there's always a chance voters here are in the mood for some change. But for now, it's easily going to be high single digits and likely D. And their neighbor to the south, we've got Pennsylvania. Here we're looking at reasonably popular incumbent Josh Shapiro. On the Republican side, they do have Stacey Garrity in the mix. She's not a nobody. She's going to be a better candidate than Doug Mastriano if he decides to actually do this yet again. Either way, though, for right now, I think Shapiro clearly is going to be favored. It's not impossible he goes down because it is a swing state. But for now, this is not even going to be leans. It's going to be likely. Now let's keep going west. We'll do Minnesota. Here it looks like Tim Walz is going for that third term. Republicans have a crowded field. They've got Scott Jensen in the mix. He ran last time, and he easily lost to Walz. Again, voters here could be in the mood for some change, but this is a blue-leaning state, and in this race, for right now, it's going to be mid-single digits and go likely for Walz. In the Southwest, it's New Mexico. It's an open seat, and it could be Deb Haaland for the Dems. We're not sure yet. Republicans were even less sure. Either way, the lean of this state is going to put this at likely D. The last state here is Oregon. This is high single digits. It's borderline safe. I don't think Tina Kotek has officially announced she's running for re-election, and she's not the super strongest incumbent. And even though the state leans blue, the governor's margins here are usually not total blowouts. So that's why this one is not safe, it's likely. Now let's do the likely states for the Republicans. First, it's Alaska. Here's an open seat. The state does have ranked choice voting, and it's just too early. We're not sure who the nominee is going to be. Republicans have a crowded field. Dems have a weak bench, but they are hoping that Mary Peltola decides to make a run here. She's the former U.S. rep here. This is a state with some quirky politics, but it is red-leaning. The race here, I don't have enough confidence in to put it at safe, but until something changes, I'm not going to put it at leans either. It's going to go right in the middle. It's going to be likely Republican. The next state is Texas. Here, it seems to be Greg Abbott running for that fourth term. On the Dem side, they're still working it out. But given the last election and Abbott not being super unpopular, he's going to be favored. And some people might put this at safe, but it's not overwhelming enough for me. It's going to be high single digits. It's going to be likely. The next state is Iowa. Here's another open seat. Outgoing Governor Kim Reynolds is unpopular, that's for sure. More questions on the GOP side than the Dems, as they might have State Auditor Rob Sand as their nominee. For me, this is mid-single digits, probably 5 or 6 points. It's not overwhelming. Dems do have a chance here if things line up, but this is a red enough state that this rating is going to stay at likely. Now we'll go down to Florida, and probably going to be Byron Donalds. The Dems really have a weak bench here, and this one could go up to safe given how underestimated the Republicans have been in the last few elections. But because of the open seat factor and the potential blue-leaning environment, the rating I'm going to use here is likely Republican. Couple states north, it's South Carolina. Here's another open seat. Republicans have a crowded field. Maybe Nancy Mace is the most high-profile candidate, but it's not a guarantee she's the nominee. Dems don't have much going on here. This is going to be high single digits. It's going to be likely. Then we've got Ohio. It's another open seat in the Buckeye state, and it looks like it's going to be Vivek Ramaswamy for the Republicans. The Dems have Amy Acton, but we're still waiting to see if Tim Ryan decides to get into this thing. Either way, given the lean of this state, I think that this has to go likely Republican. And the last one is in the Northeast. It's New Hampshire. Here it's Kelly Ayotte, the freshman Republican. Assuming she runs for re-election, she should be favored. She's kind of gotten on Trump's bad side about not wanting to redistrict, but she's probably a good fit for this state. And even though Dems have more success on a federal level, Republicans have it on a state level. So the rating here is going to be likely. Now we'll go down to the most competitive states. Lean ratings are under 5%, tilt are 1% or less. We'll go through them one at a time. We'll start in the West. First, it's Nevada. The most likely matchup here is Republican incumbent Joe Lombardo against Attorney General Aaron Ford. Lombardo seems to have enough popularity in this purple state that he should be able to win, and it could be by way more than 5 points in the end, but for right now, the rating is going to be lean for Lombardo. In Arizona, this should be Katie Hobbs, the Democrat, running for re-election. And the Republican side, it looks like we're going to have Dave Schweikert in a three-way race for that nomination. Hobbs would be sitting back hoping for a lot of infighting. And even though Trump won the state by 5.5 points, in a bunch of states, I think there's appeal with having opposite parties control the governor's mansion and the legislature, so they could work to Hobbs' advantage here. And even though she's vulnerable and could lose, the rating right now is going to stay at a tilt for Hobbs. Let's go to Kansas. This will be an open seat. There's currently a Democratic governor here, Laura Kelly. She's out of there after 2 terms. Republicans have a crowded field. Dems don't have a huge bench here because this state is fairly red. So it's not easy to rate this one, but Republicans should be favored to flip it back. It could be a big margin in the end, but for now, it's going to be lean for the Republicans. The next state is Wisconsin. A lot of open seats this cycle, and this is another one. With Trump in the White House, Dems should have an advantage here, but Republicans, they could flip it. There's way too many questions on both sides, more so on the Dems, as Republicans have Tom Tiffany now in this race. He might not be the nominee, but either way, this rating last time I had at a tilt for the Dems. This time I'm going to bump it up maybe a 0.5 point. That's going to be enough for this to be about a 1 to 2 point margin. That's going to be a lean for the Dems, but it's pretty much a toss-up and could go either way. It's the same thing next door in Michigan. This is an open seat. It could be a 3-way race between Jocelyn Benson, John James, and independent Mike Duggan, who used to be a Democrat and mayor of Detroit. Third-party challenges usually fizzle out in the end. But again, with Trump in the White House, Dems should have an advantage here. But theoretically, Duggan, being a former Dem, should pull away more from Benson. And John James has already ran statewide multiple times, so he could win it, but I think the Dems are going to have a small advantage here. One state to go, that's Georgia. It's the last open seat. Brian Kemp, he's out of there. We all know the Atlanta suburbs have moved toward the left over the past decade. It was a close race in 18 between Kemp and Abrams, but in 22, Kemp won it by a likely margin. It'd be interesting to see if Stacey Abrams runs yet again. But there's a lot of candidates running on both sides, more so on the Dems. The GOP might be looking at Burt Jones. This one is totally up for grabs, but for right now, I think the Republicans would be slightly more likely to be favored. So that's why this is going to go tilt for the Republicans. So that's it. That comes out to 19 seats for the Republicans, 17 for the Dems. The only seat that actually flips here is Kansas, but it could also be any one of a number of different states that come onto the map. Everything could look pretty different in 6 or 8 months from now. But for right now, this is what I've got for the map for the elections for governor in 2026. So let me know in the comments, how does your map look compared to this one? Do you agree with 90% of these ratings, or do you have a totally different take on a bunch of these states? Which states do you think have the most potential to change depending on which candidates get into the race? Let me know what you think down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to help support the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.